Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Good morning. It's good to see people that are here, people that are there. We're all here. I am going to do a reading from Not Always So, a book of Susuki Roshi's Dharma talks. So for people that don't know, Susuki Roshi came from Japan in 1952 to 59 to San Francisco, and then in, I believe, 62, he started the San Francisco Zen Center, and then the Tassajara Mountain Training Center, Mountain Monastery. So one of our senior teachers, Flint Sparks, studied in that lineage, studied with Blanche Hartman, who was a student of Susuki Roshi. And our other senior teacher, Peg Syverson, studied and received Dharma transmission with Kosho Miller? Is it? McCall. Kosho McCall at Austin Zen Center, and he also was in the lineage of Susuki Roshi. Peg also was in the lineage of, or studied with, Charlotte Joko Beck. So Susuki Roshi is one of the ancestors whose names we chant in the morning during the week when we chant our service chants. So this is a really nice book. The Zen Mind Beginner's Mind is more popularly known, but this is kind of in addition to that, more Dharma talks of Susuki Roshi's. So what I wanted to read this morning was a section of talks called Ordinary Mind, Buddha Mind. The point of my talk is to give you some support for your practice. There is no need for you to remember what I say. If you stick to it, you stick to the support, not the tree itself. A tree, when it is strong, may still want some support, but the most important thing is the tree itself, not the support. So to me, this speaks to a finger pointing toward the moon. That the point is not the finger, the point is not the pointing or the person pointing, the point is the moon. So to me, Susuki Roshi is saying the talk is the support, but it's not the thing. The thing is the tree, the larger tree. I am one tree, and each of you is a tree. You should stand up by yourself. When a tree stands up by itself, we call that tree a Buddha. In other words, when you practice Zazen in its true sense, you are really Buddha. Sometimes we call it a tree, and sometimes we call it a Buddha. Buddha, tree, or you are many names of one Buddha. When you sit, you are independent from various beings, and you are related to various things. When you have perfect composure in your practice, you include everything. You are not just you. You are the whole world or the whole cosmos, and you are a Buddha. So when you sit, you are an ordinary human and you are Buddha. Before you sit, you may stick to the idea that you are ordinary. So when you sit, you are not the same being as before you sit. Do you understand? So this to me brought to mind some sections of many of the chants we do at various times here at Appamada about the difference between the individual, the separate, and the more universal or the larger. Maybe it's called small mind, big mind. Maybe it's called difference and unity. One of the chants we chant is called difference, merging of difference and unity. And this chant says, forms are basically different in material and appearance. So we know that there's individuality. We know there's particularity. Sounds are fundamentally different in pleasant or harsh quality. Darkness is a word for merging upper and lower. Light is an expression for distinguishing pure and defiled. So to say that we are ourselves and separate before we sit zazen, that is one point of view. That is one reality. That is one way of seeing things. In the Shen Shen Ming, another chant we practice here at Appamada, one of the couplets is, in all the world of things as they are, there is no self, no non-self. So there is no particularity, there is no universality. If you want to describe its essence, the best you can say is not two. In this not two, nothing is separate, and nothing in the world is excluded. So there is you before zazen and you during zazen. And you're not the same being, Susuki Roshi says, before you sit. You are a Buddha. You may say that this is not possible to be ordinary and holy. When you think this way, your understanding is one-sided. In Japan, we call someone who understands things from just one side as Tamban Kan, someone who carries a board on his shoulder. Because you carry a big board on your shoulder, you can't see the other side. You think you are just an ordinary human, but if you take the board off, you will understand, oh, I am a Buddha too. How can I be both Buddha and an ordinary human? It is amazing. That is enlightenment. When you experience enlightenment, you will understand things more freely. You won't mind whatever people call you. Ordinary mind? Okay, I am ordinary mind. Buddha? Yes, I am Buddha. How do I come to be both Buddha and ordinary mind? How is the particular and the universal, the difference and the unity the same thing? Buddha, in its true sense, is not different from ordinary mind. And ordinary mind is not something apart from what is holy. This is a complete understanding of ourself. When we practice zazen with this understanding, it is true zazen. We will not be bothered by anything. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, that will be okay. To have this feeling, it is necessary to become accustomed to our practice. If you keep practicing, you will naturally have this understanding and feeling. That sentence is very reassuring to me. In this sentence, to me, he's saying, you don't need to strive. You don't need to make something happen. If you keep practicing, you will naturally have this understanding and this feeling. It will not just be intellectual. You will have the actual feeling. Even though someone can explain what Buddhism is, if he does not have the actual feeling, we cannot call him a real Buddhist. Only when your personality is characterized by this kind of feeling can we call you a Buddhist. The way to become characterized by this kind of understanding is to concentrate on this point. Many koans and sayings bring out this point. Ordinary mind understands things dualistically. So I am speaking from ordinary mind when I speak about difference and unity, or particularity and universality. So ordinary mind understands things dualistically, but even though we are doing what we usually do, that is actually Buddha's activity. Buddha's mind, Buddha's activity, and our activity are not different. Some may say that such and such is Buddha's mind, and this and so is ordinary mind. But there is no need to explain it in that way. When we do something, we cannot say, I am doing something, because there is no one who is independent from others. When I say something, you will hear it. I cannot do something by myself, just for myself. If someone does something, everyone will be doing something. Moment after moment, we continue our activity, which is Buddha's activity. You cannot say that this is just Buddha's activity, because you are actually doing something too. Then you may say I, but we don't know what I that is. You try to say who is doing what because you want to intellectualize your activity, but before you say anything, the actual activity is present. Who you are is here. I really was taken by that sentence as well. Who you are is here. And was intrigued by the idea that what I am is a place. What I am is everything included in this moment. Our activity is both cosmic and personal. So there is no need to explain what we are doing. We may want to explain it, but we should not feel uneasy if we cannot, because it is impossible to understand. Actually, you are here, right here. So before you understand yourself, you are you. After you explain, you are not really you anymore. You just have an image. But usually, you will stick to the image which is not you, and you will ignore the reality. As Dogen Zenji said, we human beings attach to something that is not real and forget all about what is real. Me, that goes back to the tree and the support and the talk and the not remembering the talk, because the talk and the support and the finger pointing at the moon are not the thing. As Dogen Zenji said, we human beings attach to something that is not real and forget all about what is real. That is actually what we do. If you realize this point, you will have perfect composure and you can trust yourself. Whatever happens to you, it doesn't matter. You trust yourself, and this is not the usual trust or belief in what is not real. When you are able to sit without any image or sound, with an open mind, that is true practice. When you can do that, you are free from everything. I think the Shin Shin Ming speaks about this, saying, for the mind in harmony with the Tao, all selfishness disappears. With not even a trace of self-doubt, you can trust the universe completely. All at once you are free, with nothing left to hold on to. All is empty, brilliant, perfect in its own being. In all the world of things as they are, there is no self, no non-self. If you want to describe its essence, the best you can say is not to. When you are able to sit without any image or any sound, with an open mind, that is true practice. When you can do that, you are free from everything. Still, it is all right for you to enjoy your life, moment after moment, because you are not enjoying your life as something concrete and eternal. Our life is momentary, and at the same time, each moment includes its own past and future. In this way, our momentary and eternal life will continue. This is how we actually lead our everyday life, how we enjoy our everyday life, and how we have freedom from various difficulties. I was sick in bed for a long time, and I was thinking about these things. I was just practicing Zazen in bed. I should enjoy being in bed. Sometimes it was difficult, but then I laughed at myself. Why is it so difficult? Why don't you enjoy your difficulties? That, I think, is our practice. Thank you very much. So I wanted to open up to comments and questions and ideas about that, about difference and unity, about the holy and the ordinary. And how when we try to understand that intellectually, it's gone. Kind of like when you're out at night looking at stars, and there's one that's very faint. If you look at it directly, you can't see it. And that has to do with the anatomy of our eye, and how when the light hits on something we're actually focused on, it's not hitting the most sensitive, the most receptive part of our eye. We have to look just to the side of something. We can't look exactly at it to see it most clearly. So please, I invite comments. Kim.
I love the idea, the reading of "You Are Here," because here, most people think of it as a GPS coordinates, and opposed to like "are" or "is" being equal. So what you are is equal to everything as you described.
Right. This location, this
environment,
particular moment.
That you're part of the environment.
Right. You're not just I'm not just me sitting here over here, but everything else, everybody else that's in the room and on the block and in the city. It's mind-blowing, and like Susuki Roshi said, you can't understand it.
And your here is different than my here, even though we're in the same room.
Right, right, yeah.
Is the collapse of subject object, would that be similar to something like thinking of this body as kind of an open system? And so what I see isn't necessarily out there. What I'm experiencing is actually this open system interacting with the rest of this open system, maybe.
Right.
And so to think of that over there as different than this here is kind of nonsensical in that way.
Yeah, I think it's one-sided. I mean, I think he's saying in this talk, and the chants talk about, that it's not one way or the other. When you see it just one way, when I see it like, no, there's the mat over there and it's this far away from me and I am not breathing in the mat, that's like having a board on my shoulder and I don't see the other side. I just see one side. And that whole idea of not two, the best you can say is not two. You can't say that one way is right, but I really agree with you. One way of seeing things is I'm taking in everything and then I'm breathing out everything. It's a process. Everything is a process. It's changing moment by moment. And that's what we are if we want to talk about what I am, or if we want to talk about this ongoing process. So yeah, I think that's really true, what you're saying. Joan?
I think that touches on our first practice principle too, which is almost the default tendency of humans is just caught in the self-centered dream. You know, we see it from this being's perspective, and we can easily say that's truth, that is reality, that is what it is, but it's just this being. And then, as you were talking about, part of a larger system. And I felt that's what sitting is for, because our default is to say what our senses experience is what's real. And we have to get beyond that to see a larger picture.
Yeah. Yeah. And that what our senses perceive, that reality is partial. Not that it's not important and we don't want to hit the car in front of us, but that it's partial. And it's totally intertwined. Yeah, Becky.
One of the things that I was interested in, one of the things that I sort of, like when you hear something and you're going like, well, like, why is he saying it that specifically? Which was that sort of like when you're on the cushion is when you're Buddha and you're not when you aren't. Kind of it. I mean, it was really a pretty sharp edge there about that. And to me, it is, I can't figure out the difference of it, because it's like so many other things. It goes through, it's part of a continuum. It's part of something. Sometimes we have more of our Buddha nature present in us in a way that everything we're doing is that. I mean, that's like, it's not just when we're sitting on, or that the things that are specifically between in our practice together, like kinhin and the I never have, I don't know all the names of things, but the work practice and so on. All of those are inviting us to walk with our Buddha nature present fully. And so I think the point is, we can live in this world more and more the more we practice and invite it as Buddha, as Bodhisattva fully. That's my sense about it. Because we need our small mind, the one that responds to certain things, that is, it is, when you need to make a choice, you have to pick one. Like when you absolutely have to make a choice about what am I doing right this minute next? You have to pick one. And so that's the small mind. It needs to do that. Sometimes it needs to do it in conversation with our true mind, depending on what it is. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It does. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about dualism. I'm thinking about how this talk is so dualistic. I mean, talking about ordinary mind and big mind, and how that's our everyday way of thinking of things. That's our rational, discursive mind. And there's another way. There's another way that's, I don't know how to say it, that it's not too, it's, and how they're connected. The idea of connecting presupposes two. So to be able to imagine something that isn't that is non-discursive, is not rational.
It's our language almost inevitably is. I mean, yes, some poets step slightly outside of that, still using words, but really stepping outside of the way that our brain has been taught to, but also is somehow inherent in the place in our brain where words are.
Right.
And yet it's our one of our primary ways of communicating.
Right. It's like the support, not the tree. It's like the finger, not the moon. But that's like you said, that's largely how we communicate. It's nice when there's communication without that. I mean, I think of the few times, I think a lot of times looking at something, connecting with something visually for me.
And when we are in close relationship to each other physically, that we don't all know how to, and we can't do it all the time, but we can be open to the energy of the other person, not just by what we see or hear or whatever. It is there as a physical thing that we can sometimes be open to.
Yeah.
And that's actually probably one of the best communications we have, but we've been so I was going to say distrained. Yeah. Distrained from knowing that part of ourselves, because that's not acceptable. That's not something that's concrete enough to have people taught to know from that place.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's frightening to a lot of us to feel like I'm not separate. There's not a boundary. That what am I? I think for a lot of people that comes up in this kind of study is that sort of existential, where do I start and where do I end, which can be really frightening. So yeah, I agree with you. I think about having some time at Appamata where we practice in a way that's not so discursive. And I think my present idea is to do kind of a Zen and creating art, drawing or painting, some kind of visual art, which I think helps us move into that part of our mind, or can help us move into that part of our mind more than talking about things and reading about things and writing about things. Yeah, Kim.
Yeah, there's a book that you probably know of, Zen and the Art of Archery, and it's about a German philosopher who goes to Japan and wants to learn about Zen, and they tell him he has to learn a Zen art, and then he picks archery.
Mm-hmm.
But he can't get it at all, Zen. And then at some point, his teacher in Japan reads all of philosophy in one night. And he comes to him the next day and he says, "Now I know why you can't understand." And I just love that part.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for being here and participating and thinking about the difference between, or the differences and unity, the merging of difference and unity, and how we live that. So thank you very much.